All right, Khan. All right. Shalom, shalom. Soldier Uriah coming at you, right, with a turned up Thursday, right, through the spirit, right, coming at you with a late night turned up Thursday, man, right. As y'all can see, right, the topic of this class is what? Sirach 44 and 1, right? And what I want to do with these type of classes, I really want to touch on certain famous men, right? It might be men in the scriptures, it might be men in history, right, of the lineage of Israel, right, who may be identified in this present world as a so-called white man, right, according to what certain precepts we're gonna touch on. I don't want to jump the gun, right? Just for example, we got Yahweh Shai painted as a so-called white man, right? You have Moses depicted as a so-called white man. You got all of these mighty historical figures that come from the lineage, right, of Israel. And I kind of want to touch on uh, certain individuals, right, throughout our days, man. Right. So today, right, I'm really jumping the gun. Let me give a mighty shalom to all the captains, to all the officers, to all the soldiers, right, to all the brethren, right, to all the men that's in the highways and the hedges, right, to all the sisters being submissive to their husbands, all right, teaching their children righteous things, right. Shalom to all the nations. Shalom, Captain Benaniah, up in this thing at 12 in the morning, man. All praise to the Most High, right? Lord willing, brothers and sisters are preparing for the day of Simon. Excuse me, not the day of Simon. It's like it for memorial blowing the trumpets. And after the memorial blowing the trumpets, Lord willing, brothers and sisters are preparing for the day of atonement, right? Preparing your bodies right now to make your body a living sacrifice on that day, right? Preparing for the Lord's tabernacles, right? Setting aside our sins, right? Letting go, cleansing the house, man. We doing spring cleaning in the fall, right? And as we prepare for all these mighty feast days, which are very spiritual, right? So we're gonna go ahead and get in this thing, man. Let's go ahead and get this in the book of Sirach, chapter 44, and verse 1. All right. And it reads thus: Let us now praise famous men and our fathers that begat us. The Lord hath wrought great glory by them through his great power from the beginning. So the scriptures say, hey, you ought to give great what? Praise unto famous men, right? Reverence unto famous men. That don't mean go out and make these people your idols, right? That don't mean go out and make uh, uh, Chris Brown your favorite person in the whole wide world. That's not what that's talking about. It's not talking about you love Michael Jackson so much. No, it's talking about men who the Lord wrought great glory by. And who are those type of men? You have your Elijahs, your Elishas, your King Davids, your Solomons, your Sauls, right? When he was walking in his righteousness, right? Your Moseses, right? Your Joshuas. I'm talking about men that work gloriously through the power and inspiration of the Most High, right? Talking about your Yahweh Shai, right? Who died for the nation of Israel, made himself an ultimate sacrifice for his people, right? And these are the men of our lineage, right? Who the world covers up and changes their identities, right? But today we're going to be talking about a mighty general, right? Goes by the name of Hannibal Barca, right? Through the spirit, I've been kind of looking into this for a while, right? And it was just on my spirit one day by the Most High to kind of, touch it just a little bit. We're not gonna go too deep into it. We're gonna touch it just a little bit because touching on this specific character, right? This specific person of history, right? Person of interest, if you will. It's gonna show you the Israelite lineage, right? It's going to show you how they try to cover up the faces of the judges. All right. So let's go ahead and kick this off with the book of First Maccabees, right? Chapter 3, right, in verse 48 in the Apocrypha. All right, shalom, everybody that's tuning in this thing. Just now hopping in there, right? We'll kick this off with the book of First Maccabees, chapter 3 and verse 48. I'm gonna share my screen because I want to pull up an image. I want to pull up an image, man. Okay. Y'all let me know if y'all can see what's going on. Okay, here we go. So let's pull up Hannibal Barca. Right, and I just want to see the image that they pull up. Look at this. All right, they going off already. Look at this guy. Right, pure, look like he from pure Idumean seed. Look at this. This right here, and this is exactly what I mean right here, right? Because I say we touching on Hannibal today, right? And like I said, I want to make this a deal where we kind of touch on many different people. You know, I got to get my studies up for that, right? You know, I got to read more books for that, but you know, Lord willing, we could do that. But as for this right here, you see the image of Peyton behind it? That's exactly what we're going to read right here. Let's go to the book of First Maccabees, right? Chapter 3, verse 48. And it reads thus: and laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images, right? So the book of the law is what? The Bible, right? The Torah, the prophets, the Tanakh, you know, everything, Old Testament, New Testament, right? And what did the heathen do when they got our book, right? During the so-called, not the Dark Ages, but the Renaissance period, right? Or during the period of iconoclasm, right? They took our scriptures, they took our roles, right? They kind of saw the images of the mighty Yahushua, of the mighty David, right? Looking nice, brown skin and ruddy, right? They saw Yahushua with skin that as if it appeared as if it was burnt in a fire, right? And they saw how Moses, right, when the Lord showed him one of his first miracles, how his skin went from very dark to very white and leprous, right? They seen these things, right? And it said, what? And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen has sought to paint the likeness of their images, right? And look at this. You can't tell me it's not the imagination of the so-called white man. Man, I heard the captain say this at Camp 101 last week. Man, a so-called white man can't be everybody. You pull up an African, it's gonna show you the so-called white man, right? You pull up anybody that's important on the face of the planet Earth, it's gonna pull up a so-called white man, right? Hey, he can't be everybody. That's not possible, right? That's not possible, right? The Lord made 18 different nations. So you telling me Esau, Edom, the so-called Caucasians, is every nation? That don't make sense, right? And that's why the Israelites, through the power and spirit of Yahweh Shemi Oshai, were able to tear down these strongholds with the words of the Lord, right? So let's continue on, right? Let's go to the next precept. Let's go to Job. Let's go to Job, chapter 9, right? The classic. Job chapter 9 and verse 24. It's a classic precept, right? Job chapter 9 and verse 24. And it reads thus: the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Because what did Esau, who was the wicked first and foremost? Right? Who was the wicked? Esau, Edom. Esau, Edom is the border of wickedness. Let's go to Malachi, the first chapter. Okay. Malachi chapter 1. And it reads thus. Malachi chapter 1, I'm going to start at verse 3. And it says thus, and I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Meaning what? The Lord brought Esau down to a low estate. Okay. The Lord brought down Esau to a poor estate. This, right, specific time period in history has happened during the so-called dark ages of Europe. When the Israelites, when we were ruling the earth, we had your King Jameses, right? We had the Scots ruling, the Danes ruling, right? This was a time period when Esau was laid waste, right? Verse 4. Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, right? But we will return and build the desolate places, right? So this is a word of prophecy. Esau is saying, hey, we're going to, though we poor and broken down right now, we're going to return and build our desolate places. And the scripture just said what? Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So at a certain point in time, Esau was able to come back into power and reclaim, right, his authority over the earth, right? So let's read on. Malachi 1:4. But we will return and build the desolate places. Thus said the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. Right? So though Esau is exalted right now, the Most High said he's gonna, when he returns, he's gonna throw down, right? Because Esau, he likes to build his things to the top at the highest point of the heaven. And the Lord gonna throw those things down, man. Gonna cast Esau down the hill, like you read in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 on down. Right? They shall build, but I will throw down. And they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. So this is a people whom the Lord has indignation against forever, man. Hey, and the Lord mean that, right? And it said what? That this is the border of wickedness, right? So the earth was given into the hands of the wicked. Who was the wicked? Esau, because he is the border, meaning the beginning of wickedness. All right. So let's read on at Job chapter 9, verse 24. Are we lagging? Y'all let me know if we lagging. I got a little Wi-Fi symbol popping up on my screen. Okay. We look like we better. Okay. Job chapter 9 and verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So the wicked, right, who we have now declared as Esau Edom, the so-called Caucasian race, right? It said what? He covered the faces of the judges, right? That's why you had the depictions of a European Yahushua with stringy dog hair and blue eyes and a strange nose and weird facial features. Kind of look like a ABC game community, right? The HOMO community, right? But the point is, hey, Esau came into power, right? And they changed all these things. I'm going to share my screen one more time because I want to look up a word. Iconoclasm. I want to get that definition. Right? Because that's the proper definition. That's what it was. Y'all forgive me if I misspell something. Iconoclasm. It says, okay, the action of attacking or assertively rejecting cherished beliefs and institutions or established values and practices. I don't really like that definition, right? Number 2 is the main point. The rejection of destruction of religious images as so like heretical, the doctrine of iconoclasts. So it's the rejection or the destruction of a religious image, right? And that has Esau written all over it, man. Right? Why? It's because when you do certain things like that, for one, it tells me that you're a sneaky person, right? You're conniving and you're condescending, right? And all of those traits consume Esau, right? They say, you know what? Hey, I'm jealous, right? Because why these famous people can't be us, right? They jealous that we got the covenant of the Most High and that they don't. That's all it is, man. Right? So that's the word iconoclasm. Shout out to my brother Emmanuel, right, from Houston. He kind of put me on that word like many years ago. I just never knew what it meant. Right? So let's continue on. All right, let's go ahead and get in this thing, man. Today we talking about Hannibal. Right? Hannibal Barca. Who is Hannibal Barca? We're gonna find out today. I don't even know why I keep turning my screen off because we're gonna be dealing with this screen pretty much for the remainder of the lesson. Let's go ahead and look this up. Who is Hannibal Barca? Salaki. Who is Hannibal Barca? All right. Hannibal Barca was a Carthaginian general and statesman renowned for his military tactics during the Second Punic War against Rome, particularly for his audacious crossing of the Alps with war elephants. Right? So, and we've already discovered they have depicted Hannibal as a so-called white man, right? Though he lived in North Africa. Okay, that don't make sense to me, but okay, we're gonna discover these secrets, man. We're gonna kind of the hidden things of Esau sought out, as the scriptures say. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and get that precept. I'm gonna get two of them, 2 or 3 witnesses. Go to Jeremiah chapter 49, I believe. Jeremiah chapter 49. Let me see. I'm gonna get this one real quick in verse 7. It says, concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? Right? Because hey, their wisdom is vanished. Because we're figuring out the lies, the hypocrisies, and the deceitfulness of Esau Edom. We're by the Spirit of the Most High God, we're able to uncover these things. Right? We can now tell you boldly that Yahweh Shai is the so-called black man. And if he were alive, or Salaki, if he lived today in 2025, walking around the earth, he would look just like the so-called African Americans. Right? We can discover these truths with the Bible, and we could put our enemies to shame. That's why Job said they were confounded because they had hope. These nations hope, right? That we still just dumb niggas. These nations hope that we're just YNs, right? These nations hope that we can't discover their secrets, right? By the Spirit of the Lord, we're able to do these things. Hallelujah. Right? Let's get another one. Right? Let's go to Obadiah, chapter 1 and verse 6. And it says thus, how are the things of Esau searched out? Hey, Esau, we could see this from a mile away. We could see, right, the trickeries, right, and the evil counsels that you have plotted against us. Right? It says what? How are the hidden or Salaki, how are his hidden things sought up? right? The hidden things of Esau being revealed, man. Second Ezra chapter 6 and verse 28 says, what? That in these days the truth shall flourish, man. Right? We're set for the defense of the gospel, man. So we fighting for truth. And the Lord said that the truth was going to flourish. All right. So it's gonna lead us to this. We're gonna deal with a couple books. We're gonna deal with like three different sources on this. Okay. We're gonna deal with like three different sources. And it's all gonna tie back into the Bible. All right. Now I'm gonna give you just a little brief rundown. Now Hannibal was a mighty warrior, right? Hey, military tactics are still formed after his battles against Rome to this day, 2025 AD. Okay. That's how mighty he was through the power of the Lord, right? We're going to read about Hannibal, but I'm just giving you a brief synopsis. Now, ultimately, Hannibal was defeated by Rome, okay? And Hannibal, in Hannibal's defeat against Rome, that's what brought Rome into power, right? To give them enough currency, right? To get them enough economical value to go ahead and start that Inquisition to go ahead and take over Greece, or you know, go ahead and go to war with the Greeks, right? They ended up taking the the silver mines from under Hannibal, which was because Hannibal conquered the silver mines from Spain, right? And Lord will touch on that, but I'm just giving you a brief synopsis, as I said, right? So Hannibal took the silver mines from Spain, and when Rome defeated Hannibal, they took all that silver and all that those pure elements, and they used it to fund their war to go ahead and overthrow the Greeks, right? So the first source we're going to touch on today is Babylon, or From Babylon to Timbuktu. All the brothers in the camp should have this book. All the sisters in the camp might have this book, but I know brothers should have this book. Right? We use this book pretty often. All right, so let's touch on it, man. Let me see. Let me match it up with my book real quick. See where I want to start at. Let's start on page 107. We're gonna start in about the mid paragraph. We're gonna drop down. Okay. Actually, yeah. This is From Babylon to Timbuktu, page 107. The Hebrew Phoenician language, right? I'm gonna read it from my book selected. The Hebrew Phoenician language and culture were like invigorated, and strengthened by the deportation and the migration of energetic Black Hebrews from Palestine. Ptolemy Soter of Egypt. Ptolemy, that's a Greek name, right? That's a Greek name. Ptolemy Soter of Egypt conquered Syria and Phoenicia, deporting more than 100,000 Hebrews. And that's exactly what they do to this day, 2025 AD. These Greeks, these Romans, these damn Idumeans, man, they get into power and they say, hey, we're going to deport you. Right? Literally. And I ain't got to speak too much on him, but we can see what's going on with the orange man with the blonde hair, man. Right? What he doing with these so-called ice machines, and what he doing to our brethren, right, of the Northern Kingdom, right? Trying to do it to Southern Kingdom too, trying to hit them Haitians, them Levites, right? Well, let's read on. The Persian king, Cambyses, had previously sanctioned the colonization of Hebrews in Egypt. Man, damn, so we going from Palestine, we going from the Greeks, right? Now we going to what? Back into Egypt, right? What nation have not had a partaken in the spoiling of our temple? Right? What nation have not had their hand in our slavery, in our destruction? according to First Maccabees 2:9, right? Shalom, brother Abraham. Let's read on. Oh yes, like during the wars of the Maccabees, thousands of Hebrews became slaves and exiles. Ptolemy Lathyrus captured 10,000 slaves from the region of the Sea of Galilee. The king of Egypt, Psamtik the first and Psamtik the second, used Israelite garrisons on the Egyptian borders near Libya, right? And the original Egyptians, right, would be the Libyan. The Libyans today would be the ancient Egyptians, right? And when I say Libya, I'm not talking about the fair skinned people, but the true Libyans of, I don't want to say Negro, but darker features. Okay, so let's read on. But we got some people scattered in there because what? We were stationed, we were garrisoned in there, meaning we were taken captive in that land. Let's read on. Where we at? I want to make sure y'all up to date with me, up to speed. All right. The wars with Rome compelled hundreds of thousands more to escape into North Africa. So we know we had a siege of 70 AD. Well, a lot of our people, a lot of our brethren, right? We fled into the west coast of Africa. We can look that up, right? That's why you got the Kingdom of Judah on the ancient map of Congress. Matter of fact, if I could find that, I'm gonna find that through the spirit, right? You have the Kingdom of Judah on the ancient map. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and look that up real quick. Let's see if I can get that. I sent this. I believe I had put in one of the chats. Maybe I could find it with the swiftness. Who was it? Let me see. Salakia, bear with me. Okay. Library of Congress. West Coast Africa. Let's see. Oh man. Gotta verify I'm a human. Hey, I must be taking over everything. I'm not sure this is the one I want. Let's see if we can find another one. Let's see if I can find another. Kingdom of Judah. Negro land. This might be it right here. Oh, okay. All right. Now, this is on the Library of Congress official website. So if you got any scoffers, right, you got to tell them to go look this up. Now, this is the west coast of Africa, okay, Negro land. Right, that's what it's called. So you have, where we at? Boom, right there. Okay, there we go. Kingdom of Judah. Kingdom of Judah. If you watch that movie, it's called The Woman King. Right, we had the female warriors called the Goji. They dwelt in the landmass of Weta. On the movie, they spelled it with an O, right? But here they spelled it with a W. It's the same pronunciation, same word. But this is the Kingdom of Judah, okay? And in that movie, you could see how the Spaniards were coming in and establishing slave auctions, right? It was coming in, making the league with certain of the Africans around us, Joel 3 and 6, right? And was sipping us off, right? So that's on the official Congress website, the Kingdom of Judah. And it ties me back up into what? The siege of 70 AD, right? How a lot of our people fled into the west coast of Africa. And what was it called? The Kingdom of Judah. So all praise to the Most High for that, a little bit of knowledge. But now, how does that tie in? Because of this right here. During the Punic Wars, or actually, let me go back to my book. During the Punic Wars and after, North Africa, Salakia, I'm jumping the gun. Let's start right here. The wars, okay? The wars with Rome compelled hundreds of thousands more to escape into North Africa. So the Lord said we was as the sand of the sea, right? And us being as the sand of the sea, we're not just going to be settled in one area, right? James chapter 1 and verse 1, right? Shalom, right, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Deuteronomy 28:64. We'll be scattered into diverse lands when neither us nor our fathers have known. Right? I'm paraphrasing, but y'all get the point. Okay. So here we've been scattered not only to West Africa, but to North Africa. Right? During the Punic Wars and after, North Africa contained a large Hebrew population. This Hebrew population made converts and intermarried with the Canaanites and the native Africans, as we always do, thus being the reason we have now been brought to slavery under the hand of the so-called white man. Right? So our people was going off during this time. And during the time of what? The siege of 70 AD. Right? When we started to do what? Intermarry with the Canaanites and the other Hamites. Right? So let's go to page 108. Let's go to page 108. All right. And I'm going to start in the first paragraph. All right, we're going to start. Start right here at Hannibal. All right, we're going to stop at Hebrew. Actually, might as well just read that. All right. Y'all let me know if I'm going too fast, man. All right. From Babylon to Timbuktu, page 108. Hannibal and of Hasdrubal, said Slouch, and most valuable of all, we have found again the ancient language and writing of Canaan, the rich idiomatic speech of a city which once counted 700,000 inhabitants. And we Hebrew writers, we who write and fill in our biblical tongue, have recognized at once that this recalled Phoenician language is nothing more nor less than Hebrew. So, the Canaanite language, right, which they were speaking, right, was what? The Hebrew. A pure Hebrew dialect, nearly the same as was spoken in the country of Israel. So these Africans, so-called, now we know that these weren't just Africans, that these were our people scattered into where, as it said, North Africa, right? Leading up to who? Hannibal and Hasdrubal, right? The Barcas, these famous men who have been depicted as so-called white men, right? It said what? That the language they spoke was nearly the same as was spoken in the country of what? Israel, Yasha'Allah, right? So read a little bit of the second paragraph. The population of Carthage was derived from Palestine, and its civilization was Hebraic in origin. Schlauch is certain, after much research, that the language Hannibal spoke, here we are, that the language Hannibal spoke, right, and in which he directed his troops was Hebrew. The very same language that Hannibal spoke, And the same language which he directed his troops was what? Was Hebrew. And you have to remember, at this point in time, Esau, he's rebelled from under our rulership. We're not speaking the same language anymore. We're not speaking the same language as Esau no more, right? Because what did the Bible say? Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, right? As time progressed, right, we understand that languages evolve, right? So we're not speaking the same language as Esau no more. It was a doctrine that says, Esau can't be the white man because how did he take us into slavery? We speak the same language. Well, obviously through process of time, through separation of nations, right? Spreading out through all these many countries, separated for all these many years, we not gonna speak the same language. We're two separate people that just share the womb. We're not the same, right? Let's get this Deuteronomy, right? Chapter 28, right? In verse, where we at? 40, 49, right? Deuteronomy 28, 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth. And as I mentioned earlier, right, if you watch that movie, The Woman King, right, or just even in general history, right, where did the Europeans come from? They came from Europe. From Europe to the west coast of Africa, that's far, right? That's a great distance because they had to travel on ships, right? They came from one side of the world to the other just to find us, right? The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth. See, we still speaking the Hebrew, right? And they speaking bastards English, okay? As swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. So even in this example here, where we have Rome versus the Carthaginians, or Rome versus the Northern African Hebrew Israelites, these are two separate tongues and dialects, right? So we got to keep that in mind. These are two separate tongues and dialects. We got the Romans speaking what? Italian, right? Speaking the language of Italy. And then you got the Israelites speaking the language of what? The Hebrews, right? So was there more I went on there? Let me see. Let me see. Come on. We're gonna read this whole page almost. Right? Let's read on. So now we have the understanding that Hannibal was speaking to his troops in the language of Hebrew. But let's put a pause to that real quick because let's find out who Hannibal's troops were. Let's find out who Hannibal's troops were. Let's go to Caesar and Christ. It's a book I picked up. Got some very good information in it, right? Talks a lot about the Roman Empire, the Greeks, the Hebrews, right? So where I want to start at? I'm gonna hop around in this book. Let's go to page. Oh yeah. Let me see. It's like it. Bear with me. Okay. Let's go to page 48 real quick. Caesar and Christ, page 48. Oh, yeah. It's a little different from on my book, so I'm trying to line everything up. Okay, so that's page 47. Punitive. Okay, here it is. Drop down just a little bit more. Boom. Here we go. Page 48 at the bottom. Let's zoom in a little bit so y'all can see that. Y'all let me know if y'all can see that. Let's drop a con in the chat. Can y'all see that? Let me see. Might be a little blurry, but I'm trying to. We're gonna do the best we can with it. Okay. I'm gonna read it to y'all anyway. Okay. Boom. All right. This is Caesar and Christ, page 48, the last paragraph. Hannibal spent 8 months in subduing the Saguntines. He did not dare advance toward Italy while leaving to the Romans so excellent a port for landing in his rear. In 218, he crossed the Ebro, challenging fate as Caesar would at the Rubicon. He had an army of 50,000 infantry and 9,000 cavalry, none of them mercenaries, most of them Spaniards and Libyans. Now, you might see Spaniards, you might start flipping off the wall. Said, what, he hired some so-called white people? Hey, he had some damn nasty Edomites in his army? No, that's not what that's talking about. Because remember what we just read in Babylon Timbuktu. Remember what we just read. Right? Let's read it again. Babylon Timbuktu, page 108. The language Hannibal spoke and in which he directed his troops was Hebrew. So those Spaniards, those Libyans, right? Those were Hebrews. Those were Israelites. Those were more Israelites who were just what? Scattered in those lands, right? Hannibal started a revolution. He started a cause. He called for all the loyal Hebrews, right? And they came and fought for him out of those diverse lands, right? So these are Israelites. They spoke the Hebrew language, right? 3,000 Spaniards deserted when they learned that he planned to cross the Alps, and Hannibal released 7,000 others who protested against his enterprise as impossible. And it was hard enough to force a passage. It was hard enough to force a passage through the Pyrenees, right? It's something else I want in here. Let me see. Kind of, right? So that's all I want in there for right now. We might come back to that, but I just specifically wanted to touch on that one point. He had those Spaniards and Libyans, right? And that those were more Israelites at a point in time. Right. So we might come back to that. But let's close out with the point here in Babylon Timbuktu. All right. It says there is evidence that the Carthaginians possessed a high priesthood. Now, where are we finding a high priesthood at? Right? Because, and this is something that the Northern Kingdom have in common with the Southern Kingdom, right? the Northern Kingdom always tried to appoint themselves priests, right? We're gonna keep reading this because it said that Hannibal was more than likely that he had Zebulun and Asher with him. So he's more than likely from the Northern Kingdom of Israel, right? But who is it that ordains himself high priest, right? Let's go to the book of Joshua real quick. Because the tribe of Dan did the same thing. That's lucky, not Joshua, the book of Judges, right? Let's get this. The book of Judges, the 18th chapter, right? Judges chapter 18. I'm gonna read verse 1 just for context. It says, in those days there was no king in Israel. And in those days the tribe of the Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell in. Mind you, tribe of Dan, they already had inheritance, right? But the tribe of Dan, right, throughout history, this is a conquering people, right? Hey, certain brothers, certain historians would attribute the tribe of Dan to be the Danes, right? The from that dwelt in Europe at a point in time, right? They kind of attribute Genesis 49, where it says that Dan will be an adder in a path, meaning a serpent, right? And a lot of those Vikings and warriors who went about conquering different lands, just trying to find inheritances and stuff in history, a lot of their symbols on their ships modeled that of a serpent, of a giant serpent. Now that's hearsay. I haven't really done much research about it, but I could see that point though. All right. Because I can see it right now. They already got inheritance, but they want to go conquer some more people and take their inheritance. Right? Let's drop down. Verse 2. And the children of Dan sent of their family 5 men from their coast, men of valor from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to search it. And they said unto them, go search the land. Who, when they came to the Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, they lodged it. Right? Let's drop down. Verse 14. Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish, and said unto their brethren, do you know that there is in these houses an ephod, and a teraphim, and a graven image, and a molten image? So they kind of hyped up about it. And they ready to start their own priesthood. I'm talking about they ready to start a priesthood, huh? Right? Now, therefore, consider what you have to do. It said, think about it. Man, this ain't here by no, just by chance, man. We got to, what we got to do, man. Right? And they turned thitherward and came to the house of the young man, the Levite, even unto the house of Micah, and saluted him. And the 600 men appointed with their weapons of war, which were of the children of Dan, stood by the entering of the gate. So these men, they had weapons of war, right? The tribe of Dan is known to be conquerors, all right? They were always in the ships, traveling to and fro, just looking for different lands to conquer, right? Let's drop down to verse 19. And they said unto him, hold thy peace, lay thine hand upon thy mouth, and go with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for thee to be a priest unto the house of one man, or that thou be a priest unto a tribe and a family in Israel? Right? So that's one account, right? The Northern Kingdom wants to set up their own priest, right? What did Rehoboam do, man? When he rebelled in the sight of the Lord, didn't he set up his own priest in the house? And Jeroboam said in his verse 26. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. Right? He was being faithless. The Lord told him he was going to be a ruler, right? But he was being faithless, right? If this people go up to sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto their Lord. So he's scared that the tribes were going to return back to the southern kingdom, right? Even unto Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they shall kill me and go again to Rehoboam, king of Judah. Verse 28. Whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. So he putting sin upon the people, man. Hey, out of his fear, right? Out of his unfaithfulness, right? He put sin upon his brother. And he said, what? It's too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. You can't go. I forbid you, right? Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt, right? And he set one in Bethel, and the other put he in Dan, right? Verse 31. And he made an house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi. Because the sons of Levi, right, according to the southern kingdom, right, the southern kingdom was given the priesthood, right, the Levites, right, the sons of Aaron. When you read Numbers chapter 18, Deuteronomy chapter 18, right, Leviticus chapter 1, right, Exodus chapter, 38 or 39, one of them, it's like it, right, and the list just goes on and on, right. So northern kingdom, they're known for making idols, but also establishing their own priests, right? Your Incas, your Mayas, right? Your Aztecas, all of them. What were they doing? They had their high priests, they had their little altars, and they were sacrificing, right? So let's read on. There is evidence that the Carthaginians possessed a high priesthood, and their ceremonies and sacrifices were similar to the rituals found in the book of Leviticus. According to some inscriptions, the Hebrew tribes of Asher and Zebulun were in Carthage from the foundation of the city, right? So the tribes of who? The northern kingdom, Asher and Zebulun. And best believe there were more tribes, right? It wasn't just Asher and Zebulun there, right? Because if we got Asher and you got Zebulun, you have to know that Dan gonna be there, right? I think it tell you in Judges, the 5th chapter, that Dan was in the ships with Zebulun, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think that's what it tell you. No, they was in the ships. Was in let's read it. Judges 5:17. Gilead abode beyond Jordan. But why did Dan remain in ships? Asher continued on the seashore and abode in breaches, right? So Zebulun, verse 18, Zebulun and Naphtali were people that jeoparded their lives unto the death in the high places of the field. So Zebulun and Naphtali, they was the ones fighting, but it was Dan and Asher that was in the sea and in the seashore, right? So as you see Asher and Zebulun, you know Dan gonna be there for sure, all right? So a lot of those men, right, that Hannibal was, that was in Hannibal's army, right? It called them Libyans and Spaniards, right? A lot of those men was from the northern kingdom. You might have had some Judites and Levites amongst them, because you know Judah liked to throw down too, right? Lord willing, there's not too much information for brothers and sisters, but I just thought this was peculiar information, man, through the Spirit, the power of the Most High, right? So that's all we're gonna get out of Babylon and Timbuktu, right? That's all we're gonna get out of there. So it's gonna take us to the next book, Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. Okay, Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. All right, we're gonna go to page 88. I know y'all can't see this on the Zoom. Okay, boom. Let me make sure everything lined up real quick so I can. So we got okay, con. Okay, boom. All right, let's go. Sex and race. All right, page 88. Start the second paragraph. That's the Timmy Severe. Right, and by default, the Timmy Severe, he's going to get an honorable mention, right? Just because he's caught up in the underlining I got. Honorable mention for the Timmy Severe. Another great, okay? But right, and this was a Roman emperor, right? He was it's been a second Ezra, right? Just going into the contrary feathers with rule for like a short time. He was one of those feathers. Constantly one of the ones that ruled for a short time, right? He wasn't one of the 12, if I'm not mistaken. But he was one of those ones that ruled for a short time. Okay, so here's a little bit of you might have a little bit of truth in there. You feel like a Negro. Kind of like a Negro here. But they still try to play it off how they do. You got the AI pictures, okay. But for the most part, they still like to make them look like I don't mean. So I'll kind of give them that with that one painting. All these, they break the nose off to make, kind of disrupt the Negro features. Right. So yeah, the captains. I'm sure they'll do another class whenever on the 12 feathers. He might get an honorable mention, man. Who's Septimius Severus? Lucius Septimius Severus was born in Leptis, Libya. There we go. He was born in Libya in the Roman province of Africa. This is a Jake. It's more than likely a Northern Kingdom Jake. We just read in Babylon and Timbuktu that what? It was about 10,000 that fled into the North Africa, man, and was taken captives too. Right? Now I'm not saying that these men are righteous, but this is us discovering the truth of our greatness. Right? Even in our wickedness, we still the Lord's favorite people. And I'm not saying that to be prideful, but I say that to say, hey, we are the Lord's people. Right? So honorable mention to right? Yeah. Take Septimius Severus, another great emperor, was born in Africa. Marcianus and Firmus. Other emperors were Moors. We know that term Moors means what? Dark skinned, right? Marcianus came of the most humble parentage. It was probably an ex-slave, as his ears were bored in slave fashion. Hannibal and his African troops must have brought a great deal of what type of strain? I don't even think y'all can see that. I don't even think y'all can see that. It said he brought a great deal of Negro strain into the Roman population. So you got a lot of mulattoes. That's what they call them, mulattoes, or your light skins, right? You got a lot of light skinned Israelites, or you might have a lot of Israelites that look like Edomites, right? It said Hannibal and his African troops, and we know that they're not Hamites. These African troops are Israelites who spoke the same Hebrew language as Hannibal, predominantly from Zebulun or Asher. Honorable mention to Dan as well. Okay, but we know for sure that these are Israelites. Must have brought a great deal of Negro strain into the Roman population. Meaning what? It's the same thing Jake is doing in today's times, right? It's the same thing, right? What was Jake doing in World War II, World War One? They traveling to these different countries. Hey, they ain't seen their wives and their children in months, so they go to these different countries and they lay up with the women of the country. And what do? They produce more children because that's what's written, right? We're gonna be in every single land. You can't escape the Israelites, man. Whereas the stars of the heavens, where's the sand of the sea, right? It's lucky. For 13 years, they dominated the peninsula from the Alps to the Naples. Hannibal himself was a full-blooded Negro with woolly hair, as his coins show. His wife was Spanish and perhaps white. And I reasonably doubt that because at the time, our people, we was going to war against Esau. What make you think? We was up here wiping Esau. Don't get me wrong, hey, it could be, but hey, I doubt it though. I doubt it. But it said what? Hannibal was a full-blooded Negro. And the so-called white man wants you to believe he was a European. And he was depicted as a Caucasian. But the truth, man, the truth is gonna flourish. Right? The truth is gonna flourish, man. Let me give a quick precept. All right, let's go to I'm gonna go to Psalms. I think I'm gonna go to Psalms. All right, Psalms, right? Let me see. Psalms chapter 33 and verse 4. For the word of the Lord is right, and all his works are done in truth. So all the works of the Lord are done in truth, man. Right? That's why the truth holds more weight than the lie. Right? There's nothing that's covered that shall not be uncovered. According to Luke chapter 12 and verse 2. Man, these are the days where knowledge is increased, according to Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 on down. These are those days, man. Right now we had a power, right, to kind of tell Esau to his face, right, you a bold-faced lie. Esau try to tell you that you're not the Israelites. Esau try to tell you that you're not the original Jew. Esau try to tell you that you're not God's chosen people. You could look Esau in his face and tell him you a bold-faced damn lie. Why? Because the truth. We have the truth, man. Right? We have the truth. Right? Let's go over a page. Page 89. So all right, let's go over a page. Okay. What's at the top paragraph? Page 89. Okay, it says Ratzel and Reclus have also spoken of the marked Negro strain in the North African peoples. The former says Negroes crossed the Alps with Hannibal. Who crossed the Alps with Hannibal? Because it originally called them what? In Caesar and Christ, Spaniards and Libyans. But that was just a what's the word? That was just a what's the word I'm looking for? That was just that wasn't their race, right? That was in that so-called nationality, if you will. That wasn't their ethnicity, right? Nationality and ethnic origin is two different things, right? Now it's calling them by their ethnic origin. Truthfully, it said Negroes, but what were Israelites, okay? It says the former says Negroes crossed the Alps with Hannibal and fell at work beside McMahon. Whatever their original nature may have been, all this population must have been allured with a strong Ethiopian element, just mean dark skinned. Okay. The entire Shemitic and Hamitic population of Africa has, in other words, a mulatto character, which extends to the Shemites outside of Africa. Hannibal, most famous of all Carthaginians. It's the last sentence of that paragraph. Hannibal, most famous of all Carthaginians, was a Negro. And this is historians. Esau, hey, see, these type of books, man, these type of books they was making during slavery, man. These type of books they was making during slavery would be killed if it was called reading, man. I tell you, right? They didn't make these books for us. The so-called white man made these books for themselves to exchange information, keep us docile, keep us ignorant, right? But as the brothers say, we can read now, master. We can read now, right? So Hannibal, most famous of all Carthaginians, was a Negro, as was said. And the thing is, if the general population understood this and knew this, right? I'm using Hannibal. He's a small figure in this, right? I'm gonna use him right now. If the general population knew that one of the world's greatest generals and military leaders was a so-called Negro, was a Israelite, most importantly, from the Northern Kingdom tribes who spoke a Hebrew, man, that would strike fear in all these other nations, and our people would rise up. How much more with the understanding that Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, is a so-called black man, is an Israelite, is a so-called Negro, the world's most influential man, the world's greatest man, the most powerful, the world's most, the universe's most powerful man under authority of Yahweh, right? Man, I mean, that would literally destroy nations, literally, right? But hey, that day gonna come though. That day gonna come. All right. So where we at? I might have to do a part two just to close out because it's pretty late, man. I know brother and sister got to get ready for work in the morning, man. All right, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and close out with that. And we're gonna come back to this most high willing next week. Not next week, but the week after. Or if I'm just feeling it through the spirit, I'll hop in here, man. Right. So Lord willing, brothers and sisters was edified for the most part through the spirit of the most high. I know brothers and sisters been hanging in here with me, man. Right. Brothers and sisters, let's get ready, man, for these feasts, man, that's coming up, man. Let's get ready, to make ourselves a living sacrifice. Just making sure we purging out our sins, man. These sins they heavy on us right now, man. We just gotta purge these things out and hope for mercy for the Most High that we be strengthened, man. Right? That's my time. Soldier Uriah signing out. Kwame Asharala. Shalom.